can have my yes with no exception. I'm laying down my right to second guess it. You can have my yes. I'm giving you my fear of never knowing whatever's coming next. I know you got me. You can have my yes. Sing it. You're the lamp, you're the light, you're the cloud that guides me. Hey. You're the way, you're the truth, you're the life inside me. You conquered my fears, so I leave it all behind. I'm running to the light. I'm giving you my dreams and my ambitions. Your presence is my prize and my provision. I'll answer when you ask. Oh, who could come against if you are for me? 'Cause even in the fire, oh, I know you got me. You can have my yes again. You're the lamp, you're the light, you're the cloud that guides me. You're the way, you're the truth, you're the life inside me. You conquered my fears, so I leave it all behind. Oh, I'm running to the light. Oh, wherever you are, wherever you wanna go, I'll follow you. Wherever you are, wherever you wanna go, I'll follow you. Wherever you are, wherever you wanna go, I'll follow you. I'll follow you. Yeah, come on, we sing it. Oh, wherever you are, wherever you wanna go, I'll follow you. Oh, wherever you are, wherever you wanna go, I'll follow. Oh, wherever you are, wherever you wanna go, I'll follow you. Oh, I'll follow you. Yeah, you're the lamp, you're the light, you're the cloud that guides me. You're the way, you're the truth, you're the life inside me. You conquered my fears, so I leave it all behind. Oh, I'm running to the light. Yeah, oh, I'm running to the light. Oh, oh, I leave it all behind. Oh, I'm running to the light. Sometimes on this journey, I get lost in my mistakes. What looks to me like weakness is a canvas for, yeah, come on, you sing it. Oh, my story isn't over. No, my, hey. If failure won't define me, 'cause that's what my Father does. Failure won't define me, what my Father, yeah, come on, let's go. Ooh, you sing it. You lay your, hey. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Check your shame. You're not welcome. Yeah, you're in the Father's house. Yeah. A rifle's not the end game. The journey's where you are. You never wanted perfect, you just wanted my heart. And the story isn't over if the story isn't good. Oh, 'cause failure's never final when the Father's in the room, yeah. Oh, failure's never final when the Father's in the room. Oh, yeah, lay your burdens down. Ooh, yeah. Prison doors fling wide, the dead come to life. You sing it. Love is on the move. Miracles take place. The cynical find faith. Love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Yeah. Jericho walls are quaking. Strongholds now are shaking. Love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Yeah, love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Ooh, lay your burdens down. Ooh, here in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door. There's any welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Yeah. Oh, lay your burdens down. Ooh, here in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Yeah.
Wow, don't you guys wish you could like wake up to that every morning? Like they would just be in your house when you wake up, like Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday. Anybody else? Yeah, come on, everybody. Okay, but you guys are gonna wanna sit because I got a lot of words and you're not gonna wanna stand that long. So we are so glad you're with us. Welcome to Orion. For all of you that are joining us online, we're so glad you're here. This place is having a blast this morning. I don't know if it's the sunshine or the fact that we all have our power back. Who didn't have power? Anybody? Wow, you guys were the very unlucky service. 9 a.m. didn't fess up. They all said they still had power, but I don't know if they're being truthful about that. But I want to share with you a couple things we have going on around Orion coming up in the next couple weeks. So next Sunday, so July 30th, we are going to have what we want to call our party in the green space. We have an awesome new space out to the north end of our property that we've kind of turned into a park space that we are dreaming of some really fun things that are going to be out there. But next weekend, we are going to have a barbecue out there. We're going to be grilling. We're going to have some watermelon, have some chips, and we want all y'all to join us. So bring a blanket, bring a camp chair, or we will bring those things as well. But come and be with us. It's going to be after the 11 a.m. service, so we should get rolling out there about 12:15. Bounce houses for the kids, fun activities, cornhole, all the things. If anybody's really into cornhole and we need like a tournament to happen, see me, because I hear that's popular. Jesse, do you think yes? Possible. It's possible. So come and be with us next Sunday. It's going to be a great time. And then heading into the following week on August 2nd, we have an awesome midweek service that we would love for you to be a part of. It is our baptism midweek. So August 2nd, we'll be right here, and we're going to be doing baptisms. So if that is something that has been on your heart and the Lord's been tugging and he's telling you it's your time, we would love to chat with you about that. All the registration is online, kensingtonchurch.org/baptism, or come have a conversation with us out at the hub. We want to tell you all about that. But we're going to make some fun out of the evening, and we are going to have a little potluck, which means I need your help. So I need you to bring something to eat on Wednesday night. We're gonna be doing the grilling, but I want everybody to participate. So if your last name, A through M, you're an appetizer or a side dish. And I do have one thing. I don't know, who did potlucks growing up? Anybody? Yes? Okay, very good. Is anybody super jaded by the Jell-O they ever ate at a potluck? Anybody? Anybody do the carrot Jell-O? Yeah, don't bring the carrot Jell-O. That's my only thing. You just can't bring the carrot Jell-O. Other than that, you can do anything else. So A through M, you are an appetizer or a side dish. N through Z, you are a munchie. You're getting off a little easy here. A munchie or a dessert. But we're going to have prizes. Best savory dish. Best, savory dish, best sweet dish. I have a prize for you. So come and be with us. We're going to be outside starting at 6, doing dinner, having some fun out there. Then we're going to come inside for worship and a word. And then we're actually going back outside again to do our baptisms outside in the green space. So it's going to be an awesome, awesome evening together. And hey, where are all my students in the room? Middle schoolers, high schoolers? Yes, I see you. You guys are meeting tonight. Just want to make sure everybody knew this is your on week, so plan on it, okay? All right, so we're so glad you're here, and I need to give a shout out to somebody over here in this front row. Some of you may know him. The legend, Steve Andrews, is in the house. Yes! Woo! Actually, the true legend is right next to him, his wife Paula, right there. There she is. There she is. Anyway, no, but Steve is giving the message today, and you guys are in for a treat. He's speaking on Peter in week 4 of our Heroic Moments series. So stand up, say hi to somebody that you truly don't know. Tell them when you got your power back and what you're doing this afternoon in the sunshine. Thanks for being here.
Woo! Hey, everybody. Thank you for that thunderous welcome. That thunderous applause was truly amazing. That's so funny. The only time I ever get thunderous applause is when I ask for it. It's pretty funny. But hey, I think I'm great, so that's... I am really excited about this series that we've been in. It's been really meaningful to me. And today we're doing Peter, which is the high point for me because Peter is really an important person and his story is really important to me. Is anybody else, I'm just curious before I even get into this story, Peter an important person kind of in your journey with Christ? Okay, quite a few of you out there, you'd recognize this. As we jump into this, I just want to say, Peter is the king of heroic moments that turn into epic fails. That's what I love about that. It's like I remember when I was playing football for Wheaton College. Now, yeah, we'll talk about it. So when I say Wheaton College, you say football powerhouse of the Midwest, okay? Wheaton College. Yeah, thank you. So for whenever you hear the phrase Wheaton College, that's what you're supposed to say. So we actually had been a terrible team. We had a chance to win the conference championship, and I just muffed the ball on the 1-yard line. We lost the game by a point, lost the conference championship. Does anybody feel sad for me? I feel a little mocked over there. Man, I was in pain. I still tell that story, and I kind of laugh about it now, but man, it was not funny. And I thought, everybody here, everybody watching on the streams had these moments where you got these great dreams of being the hero, and the result is not good. That's why I love the Bible's honesty. If I would offer you one thing when you read the Bible, it's raw in honesty. And there's nothing kind of more raw than this man, Peter. If you just read the scriptures about his life, it's truly remarkable. And Nate Marielke of Worship Arts and Teaching at Troy put this message together along with Samson. He was our lead researcher, and he's done a great job. He really has a gift of biblical insight. And we are at this moment where Peter and the disciples have just distributed food to 5,000 people from 5 loaves and 2 fishes, right? Remember the story? Thousands of people, 5,000 men, maybe might have been 15 or 20,000 people possibly. And it says right after this happened, immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side, and while he dismissed the crowd. And after he dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. And later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. And shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. And I always wondered what Jesus was thinking. Was this like he's like, hey, I'm going to give them a little charge today. I don't know what he was thinking. Is that not even funny to you? It always cracks me up. I'm like, oh, here they are. They're battling the wind. They're about to drown. None of them have their life-saving certificate. Hey, I think I'll just walk out and see how they're doing. They're terrified. Shortly before dawn, he goes out, and they think he's an apparition, a ghost. And they cry out in fear, and then Jesus immediately says to them, take courage, it is I, don't be afraid. Now, I just want to say this, that sometimes with modern translations, something is really lost. And I just want you to observe the scripture, because when Jesus says, it is I, what he's actually saying in the Greek is exactly what God said to Moses in the Hebrew. You remember Moses is being sent to free the people of Egypt, and he says to God, so who am I supposed to tell them sent me? And God says, you tell them, I am sent me. This is the exact same phrase, ego eimi, I am. And there are many of these statements Jesus makes. Jesus isn't saying, it is I. He's saying, I am. Don't be afraid. So wherever you are today, it's exactly the same thing Jesus is telling you. If it's you, Peter replied, tell me to come to you on the water. And Jesus says, come. By the way, in today's message, this is the first time he says come. It's not going to be the last. Then Peter got down on the boat. He walked on the water. He came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid. He began to sink. He cries out, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. You have little faith. Why did you doubt? Have you ever asked yourself that question, why you doubt? Any doubters in the room besides me? Like, I doubt everything all the time. It's like it's a continual struggle. Why do you doubt? Because Jesus is there. He's ready to reach out his hand. And it says, and when they climbed into the boat, the wind died, and those who were in the boat worshiped him, saying, truly you are the Son of God. Now, this is what I love about where we're going today in this story. It's what I love about Peter. It's what Peter, I don't think I would be here without the story of Peter, because Peter puts himself out there. He's like Teddy Roosevelt. He's like the man in the arena. He throws himself into life. He's flawed. He's imperfect. And he goes for it. He plunges. He lunges. He promises. And he rarely gets it right. He's Han Solo, only not as good. He's ready, fire, aim. He's act now, think later kind of guy. He's Katniss Everdeen, only he can't shoot a bow and arrow. That wasn't funny either, was it? Yeah, okay. That's two. Peter's impetuous. He's a man of action. But unlike the movies, things don't work out for him like he imagines. And so we've come to this moment where we're going to talk about the heroic moments in the life of Peter. And I want to say thank you to Nate for working on this, but also thanks for all the things that God is doing, making here. We're getting ready to receive our offering. The buckets are going to come around. There's also a way to give. You'll see on the screen ways to give. I always laugh about this. I don't know why we lie. It says give in less than 10 seconds on the app. It takes me 10 seconds to find the app. Does anybody do that? I'm like, where is that dumb thing? I was just on it. Anyway, I was just scrolling, looking at there's a few more short-term mission trips that are coming up. We've had a bunch this year. It's been our best year since COVID, where mission trips have really been ramping up. I think I'm going to finish today with a fun story. I was hoping John Cummings, anybody know John? He's always here in the front row at 11. I don't know where he is today, because I'm going to tell a story about how he was a total meathead. And I'm going to tell it in Christian love, because it's a great story. But John Cummings is a Peter kind of guy. But this is what I want to say as the offering goes by. Thank you for being a part of this journey. God is getting ready to do some cool things, I think, in our lives. But I want to say this about Peter. Just to be clear, I love Peter. Like, I love this guy. And his gigantic failures have always given me hope. And here's the funny thing. He's a man so eager to take action, but he's always falling flat. And here's the thing that I don't get, especially if you're from a Catholic background or you came from a real conservative church background. When in my generation we grew up, we would talk about the apostles. Oh, the apostles, And I was a teenager when I really started reading the Bible. I'm like they're talking about, Peter's the church, John, James and John. And you read the Bible, and so you read the New Testament, you're like, They're idiots. Like, where did we get this thing? We're like, oh, Peter's so great. You know, Peter, even after, I don't have time to teach this today, after the resurrection, after God is revealed to him through his ministry to Cornelius, as God gives him a vision in Jaffa, even after that, when he's with Paul, with Gentile believers, non-Jewish believers, Peter goes back to hypocritical Jewish practices to try to save face with the Jewish believer. Like he rat thinks on the gospel, and the only way he comes out of it is Paul calls him out. I love that. And what you're going to love about Peter is that in the midst of all of his gigantic failures, he keeps coming. He keeps taking action. And right here we see it in the story. He sees Jesus on the water. Peter feels the challenge, even though he's afraid, but he steps out. And then he gets his eyes off of Jesus and onto the storm. You know this. He fails, he struggles, and then Jesus reaches and takes him by the hand, pulls him up. And I think Peter's faith grows. In many ways, we see this repeated over and over again in Peter's life and in our life. Last week, when we talked about Samson, we talked about epic fails, and I shared there. I actually made a list and of so many of the epic fails in my life. And a lot of you that don't know me, I'm not sugarcoating these. Our marriage struggles were years of struggle where we thought we'd never be happy again. Years of chronic back pain and living as an invalid. Children pulling away from us even though I was the perfect father. $1 million mistakes here. Like bad decisions I made. And I thought, the list just goes on and on. But I thought, it's everybody. Even if you live in a closet, you have epic fails. It's just part of the journey. But what is so cool about Peter is always coming back with hope. That's the difference between him and Judas, but Peter makes huge mistakes. He's uncouth. He's rough. If you remember the status of fishermen in the nation of Israel, the only lower status jobs would have been prostitution and tax collection. Fishermen they were nothing. But today, we're going to see 3 things Peter did that I want you to think about. And the first one I want you to leave in about 40 minutes from here thinking about, I want to do this with Peter, and that is Peter stepped out. Peter stepped out. The first step starts everything. Rosa Parks, amazing. She says, to bring about change, you must not be afraid to take the first step. And we will fail when we fail to try. I want to add something to what Rosa Parks says. You must not be afraid to take the first step. But I want to tell you there's another step harder than the first step. And you know what that step is? That step is when you failed horribly and you got to take another first step. That's even worse because you don't want to do it. You don't feel like you have the courage to make it happen. And so in this case, Peter steps out of the boat in this stormy sea. You got to give him incredible credit, even though he sinks. Later, a couple chapters later, Matthew 16, he steps out by proclaiming who Jesus really is. Now, I love this. I was just there with Justin and I took 20 guys. Joe and I, we were there, in 2019, I think? Incredible time. Joe was the most enthusiastic person I've ever taken to Israel, I think, probably, and the craziest. Fortunately, he made it out. But we went to the region of Caesarea Philippi, which is north of the Sea of Galilee. By the way, when you go, you're reminded how small Israel is. It's just a tiny little spot. So you go there, and Caesarea Philippi is just north of where Jesus was living when he was doing his ministry, around the Sea of Galilee, which is not a sea. You go there, it's just a big lake. And the Caesarea Philippi would have been like the Las Vegas of Israel. It's where people went to party. That's where Herod's sons, created temples, and they had worship of all kinds of gods, especially the god Pan. The god of the underworld was worshipped there. There was a huge temple that was built to the Caesar at the time. In other words, everything was Lord except Jesus. Like all these things people are worshiping, and materialism and pleasure and indulgence and narcissism, along with all the rest. And this is where Jesus says in verse 18, who do people say the Son of Man is? And the disciples are probably looking at all this craziness. And they answer differently. They say, well, some say you're John the Baptist. Others say Elijah, one of the great prophets, who certainly one of my favorite characters in the Bible. And still others, Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. But what about you? Who do you say I am? You know, most important question I think that can ever be asked. I really think this is the most important human question. Who do you say Jesus is? And Peter, Simon Peter, says, you're the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Guys, this is a big deal. Peter recognizes Jesus and is not afraid to say it. Now, before you, I don't have time to do this before you build this up too much. Like in the very next words, Jesus is rebuking him and calling him Satan for saying stupid things. But that's Peter. But when it comes to following Jesus, or really any part of our lives, there's something about stepping out. It's part of what we're called to, being people willing to trust the Lord. And there's a couple of verses that Nate threw in that I hadn't thought of in a long time in related to this. The first was Hebrews 10. We do not belong to those who shrink back and are destroyed, but to those who have faith and are saved. Like, don't hang back. For the Spirit of God, the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. I'm telling you, people that step out experience incredible things. I didn't mention this in the first service, but I just got a text message from Ann Eames. One of my closest friends, Bill Eames, is dying. I'm going to leave here. When this service is over, I'm going to meet with a young couple that are getting married. Super fun. I'm going to meet with them for a few minutes, and then I'm going to St. Joe's, and Ann and I are probably going to make the decision on Bill's life. He's in there, and Bill came here 28 years ago as a mean drunk. He had lost his family. In fact, when I took him out to Denny's the first time to invite him to be in my men's group, he was as rude to the waitress as I'd ever seen anybody in my life. And I actually asked the waitress to leave, and I sat down and I said, Bill, you cannot talk to people that way. You're not going to do that. And so when she comes back, I want you to apologize. And anyway, he became a follower of Jesus. He destroyed his family through his alcoholism and his post-traumatic stress from years in Vietnam in battle, horrible battle. And Ann was a skeptic. She made fun of him when he became a believer. She used to go, as he would walk out the door to come to church. That's an encouraging wife. She was a Harlequin romance novelist. That's how she made her living. They became followers of Jesus, and about 5 years later, they went to the mission field for 12 years to South Africa. They were the first missionary couple from Kensington to go as missionaries. Perfect. A mean drunk and a Harlequin romance novelist. Missionary perfection. And they had incredible work in Cape Town, in the township of Masapumalele. There's still homes for children who have been orphaned by AIDS that Bill built, and it's just incredible. Well, Bill was Peter, and Ann was Peter, and you're Peter. God's calling you to step out and to face the future. Now, this is really wild. Brian Mowry, our new lead pastor, is here, and Becca, his wife. Would you guys just wave so people know where you are? Would you welcome them? Just want to remind you that Brian's going to be leading the Kensington movement and all the campuses. And by the way, Craig is up with his family having a great time up north, suffering for the Lord. He really wanted to be here. Not really. And but I am so excited. But I was thinking about this. I have had so many emotions about Brian and Becca leaving their family and their world in Connecticut and coming with their 4 daughters. And I thought, they've done the Peter step out. That's what they're doing. They're stepping out to trust God. And I believe for many of us, God is calling us to step out with them and with each other. And the biggest question out of this stepping out is, where's Jesus inviting you to step out? Like, to me, there couldn't be a more important question as you leave here today. If you're going to go out to lunch with people, you're hanging out, or you're with your spouse, you're with your kids, your friends, is like, what's your next step? Like 33 years ago, 34 years ago, I knocked on 3,000 doors, talked to 2,000 people. Not one person came to Kensington as a result, except one about 5 years ago came and showed me the mailer brochure that Ivan had done. By the way, Ruth French, one of our originals, is here from Arizona. Ruth French and Ivan were one of the first couples to believe in the mission. You haven't been here in a long time. Wave your hand. I'm sorry. That's Ruth French right there. Ruth and Ivan. I can never thank God enough for you. But it's people who step out that make the difference. And I think I want to be a person that is not talking about what I did 34 years ago. I want to know what is Jesus telling me to do today? Joe, you're starting a Bible study at your work. And people have identified you as a Christian. They don't know how messed up you are. I do. That's why we're friends. But I have watched this man. He's perfectly imperfect. And he just makes himself available to people. I mean, that's all it is. That's the Peter step out. You just step out, and I love that. And I want to say, where are you willing? Where's Jesus calling you to step out? Will you think about that? I'd love you to do that. Secondly, not only did Peter step out, but he stood on. He stood on a vision of who Jesus really was. He stepped out of the boat. He experienced the supernatural power of Jesus there. He was able to stand on water that he could have never stood on. And it's the same when he stepped out to speak about his revelation of Jesus at Caesarea Philippi. When he says, you're the Christ, you're the Messiah, you're the Son of the living God. And Jesus says to him, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you're Peter, and on this rock I'll build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. It's just fascinating to me, where Peter realizes that God has given him an incredible vision of who Jesus is, and that any good thing that's going to come to Peter is going to come because God the Father is going to reveal it and give it to Peter. And he's going to forget that. And then he's going to remember it. And then he's going to forget it. And then he's going to remember it, which is what we do. Right? Anybody? Like somebody's going to pull out of you in the parking lot and you're going to forget it right there. And God knows you're going to forget it. But then you're going to remember. And then you're going to repent. Because Jesus is always doing this. And here's what I love. Peter and the word rock here are two different Greek words. Peter is more of a word for a small rock. There's an argument about was Jesus saying he was going to build his church on Peter or on himself? There's a question about that theologically. I don't even think that matters because we know Jesus does it all anyway. But here's the thing that I was about 30 years old. The first time I realized is all my life, I always felt like, man, the gates of hell, things are bad. I mean, just feels like, evil's encroaching the world. And I don't remember ever who showed it to me. It wasn't my insight. But it said, what do you know about the gates of hell? They're stationary. They're not going anywhere. Our job is to attack those gates. They're not coming. We're not cowering in fear. I just read you those verses. We don't have a spirit of timidity. God's given us a spirit of power and love and a strong mind. And so the gates of hell will not overcome it. And I thought for everyone who steps out and stands on the promises of Christ, you're going to experience God at some point in a real, unexplainable way. And I was thinking about that, where God works along the way. My friend Julius Murgor, who started the ministry that we work with, the Pokot in Kenya, when we left seminary together, I didn't see him for 15 years, but I didn't know that the first 5 of those 15 years, when he went back to Kenya, he worked among his people, and he never saw one person trust Jesus Christ for 5 years. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine trying to do something and for 5 years experience nothing but absolute futility? Some of you may feel that way about your marriage today or about dreams that you had in your life. And I would just say, you know what Peter's story tells you? Don't give up, man. And when you fall, don't stop. So inevitably, this is the part where I'm most interested in this message. Inevitably, though, when we step out, we're going to sink. When we stand on who Christ is, we're going to forget it. We're going to fail. And then the most beautiful part of Peter's life, I'm going to illustrate for you, but first I want you to see something, because the most important and the most mind-boggling part of Peter's story comes out of his greatest failure.
While all this was going on, Peter was down in the courtyard. One of the chief priest's servant girls came in and, seeing Peter warming himself there, looked hard at him and said, "You are with the Nazarene, Jesus." He denied it. "I don't know what you're talking about." He went out on the porch. A rooster crowed. The girls spotted him and began telling the people standing around, "He's one of them." He denied it again. After a little while, the bystanders brought it up again. "You've got to be one of them. You've got Galilean written all over you." Now Peter got really nervous and swore, "I never laid eyes on this man you're talking about." Just then the rooster crowed a second time. Peter remembered how Jesus had said, "Before a rooster crows twice, you'll deny me 3 times." He collapsed in tears.
I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. I focus on the pain, the only thing that's real. The needle tears a hole, the old familiar sting. Try to kill it all away, but I remember everything. What have I become? My sweetest friend. Everyone I know goes away in the end. And you could have it all, my empire of dirt. I will let you down. I will make you hurt. I wear this crown of thorns upon my liar's chair, full of broken thoughts I cannot repair. Beneath the stains of time, the feelings disappear. You are someone else, and I am still right here. What have I become? My sweetest friend. Everyone I know goes
First time we did that song was 20 years ago. My dad was dying, and Johnny Cash had just died. And my nephew, Drew Holcomb, his band, some of you might have heard of him, but he came up and kind of did the Johnny Cash version of that. This is really cool from the Mad Hatter, but Mad Hatter's daughter. But I think at that time in my life, I remember thinking about the failures of my life and the failures of others, and I thought, when that song was written, it perfectly captured how everybody at some point experiences this life. The heartache of failure and loss. And Johnny Cash, the way he sang it, I mean, he recorded that a year before he died, and he was dying as he was recording it. And the words are real. What have I become, my sweetest friend? Everyone I know goes away in the end, and you could have it all. My empire of dirt, I will let you down. I wear this crown of thorns upon my liar's chair, full of broken thoughts I cannot repair. I mean, this is a story of Peter. Literally, that song could have been written about his journey, because Peter faces what all of us learn eventually, is that whatever empire you build, it goes away. No matter how hard you've worked, life has a way of crumbling. And for Peter, what he does, this could never be repaired in a million years. How can you betray someone to death and think that you could ever make up for that? And I've had the incredible honor many times, some of you have been there as well, but to stand outside of Caiaphas' house where you're looking east and you can see kind of up in this direction, you can see the Garden of Gethsemane and where it was, the Mount of Olives, and where Jesus was arrested, how they led him down through the valley. They would have probably brought him through the valley in chains as they were hitting him and striking him. And you can still see the stone steps that go up to Caiaphas' house, that Jesus put his feet on those steps, pretty sure. And he comes up there, and he's all alone. And Peter, what has Peter done? Peter's chopped the ear off one of the soldiers come to arrest him. I mean, he shows incredible courage. And then what does he do? He runs for his life. He's this amazing juxtaposition of heroism and madness and cowardice, just like every other human being. And when he comes up there, he warms himself by the fire, and that's what Mike just read. He starts to betray his closest friend. And Jesus is up there thinking everyone leaves you in the end. It's true, except for Jesus doesn't. And this level of betrayal can't be worked off. You can't read this or hear this song without feeling the visceral heartbreak that life can bring. And I thought, if you've read the Bible, maybe you've been a Christian your whole life, have you ever tried to imagine the weight of guilt Peter must have felt after this happened? Or the level of shame? Because we know what Judas did with the shame. He couldn't take it. So in this moment, who knows the self-hatred that Peter must have felt, where he said, man, I'm going to go with you to the very end. And he bailed out long before he got there. And so in a sense, Peter gives up. We don't know. But there's some remarkable things about this story that just blow my mind because they are so out of the box. And I hope I can share them with you in the last few minutes. Peter's grief and shame are beyond description, but then the resurrection happens. In Luke 24, I don't have this on the screen, but I'll tell it to you. Peter hears from the women that Jesus is alive. By the way, it always cracks me up. People say, well, women can't preach in church. The women preached the first sermon, post-resurrection. He's alive. And guess what the men thought? The men thought it was nonsense. How humorous is that? Dr. Hess, my mentor for many years ago, he used to say, women first at the cross, first at the tomb, first at the resurrection. Booyah. Drop the mic, walk off. Peter, however, got up and ran to the tomb. And here's the part that blows my mind. Peter has betrayed Jesus. And what does he do? By the way, when it said the men thought it was nonsense, I was working through the Greek language, said it was twaddle. You ever heard that word in a long time? Thought the women were speaking twaddle. But it said Peter rose up, and there's two words I want you to think about from the Greek. The first one, it says Peter rose up. This is the word anistemi. This is when Jesus tells the paralytic, when they tear the hole in the roof and Jesus says, your sins are forgiven. What's easier to say, your sins are forgiven, or to rise up and walk? He says he rose up. And it's like to rise up from the ground and literally to rise up from the dead. Like Peter's dead. And the women say, he's risen. What does Peter do? He rises up from the dead. His life has been lost, but he still keeps hoping. And then the second word I love, it's trecho. T-R-E-C-H-O would be the English transliteration. It means to spend all one's strength in attaining something. It literally means he got up and ran with every ounce of energy he had. This blows my mind. You know why? Because Peter was completely disqualified. He had done the worst betrayal that a human being could do. And yet when he hears that Jesus might possibly be resurrected, that the tomb is empty, what does he do? He runs towards, not away. And I found that the human reaction when we fail is to do what? Come on, speak it out loud. We run away. We hide. We try to, because of the shame, when we're caught doing something wrong, we admit it only as much as we've been caught. And what does Peter do? He rises up from the dead and he runs to the tomb. And yet, he leaves the tomb, doesn't see Jesus there. He leaves the tomb wondering. Not long after that, it says Jesus again appeared to his disciples by the Sea of Galilee in John 21. It happened this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, Nathanael, the sons of Zebedee, remember James and John, the sons of thunder, and two other disciples were together. And Peter goes, I'm going out to fish. Because you know what? I'm a man of action. That's my third terrible joke of the day, okay? I'm not telling more jokes. And they said, we'll go with you. So they went out and got into the boat. But that night, they caught nothing. By the way, this always reminds me of John 15. Jesus says, apart from me, you can do nothing. John and Peter understood that probably better than anybody. Apart from Jesus, you can do nothing. What are you going to do? You're going to fish all night and you're not going to catch anything. You're going to make promises to Jesus and you're going to fall flat on your face. It's okay, because Jesus knows you're going to fall. He's not worried about that. He says, friends, haven't you any fish? And again, is he smiling? Is he laughing? He's calling from the shore. Hey, guys, caught any fish? No, nothing. He said, throw your net on the right side of the boat, and you'll find some. When they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. And then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it's the Lord. And as soon as Simon Peter heard him, it's the Lord, he wrapped his outer garment around him, for he'd taken it off. He was probably just fishing in his tighty whities, probably. That's funny. Okay, I heard 3 giggles. He probably, seriously, probably just a little white thing. Imagine that. Or not. And he jumped into the water. And I was thinking of this word. You know what would have been a better verb for this? It was, but he plunged. This is his jump. Said he just, like again, he's living with reckless abandon. He plunges into the water with no regard of where he lands, because and where's he going? Come on, answer it out loud. He's going towards Jesus. He's hopeful in spite of everything. He's so moved to see Jesus that he jumps without thinking. It's utterly incredible to me. And I have so often been reluctant to reapproach Jesus when I failed because of the shame and guilt in my life. And I thought there are some of you in this room that have struggled with the same thing. But when they landed, Peter's already there. They saw a fire burning coals with fish on it and some bread. Jesus said, bring some more of the fish you've caught. And Peter again, he's the one who climbs back in the boat and drags the net ashore. And I think, what is he feeling? I thought Peter's got to be feeling what all of us have felt at a certain point in our epic fails. You're feeling that you have very little or even nothing to offer Jesus or to the world. And I want you to know something today. That is the greatest lie Satan has ever told to people, that you have nothing to offer. Because Jesus Christ in you, all things are possible. Anything could be lived out and could be experienced. And so for Peter to keep stepping out seems crazy. But the pain of repeated failures and broken promises do not paralyze him or defeat him in the end. And that's why I love him so much. And then this is the craziest part. This blows my mind. Peter comes in, he grabs the fish, and then what does Jesus say to Peter and the disciples? Okay, this is like a Lord of the Rings moment. Jesus is resurrected. He's alive. They're by the sea. He goes, come and have breakfast. Doesn't that seem silly? He's like, Jesus is saying, your performance, all of you guys, not just Peter, but all of you, is repeated failure. He says, but what I'd really like for you to sit down with me and have breakfast. Doesn't that speak to you of the grace of God? Isn't that incredible? To me, that's so incredible. He says, I want you at my table. I want you in my life. And of course, the disciples are scared to death. It says they're afraid to ask, who are you? They knew it was the Lord. And then Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them. Here's the bread. Here's the fish. What are they seeing? This is how much I love you, right? See the scars. See where the nails went in my hands. And then there's one last section of torture for Peter where Jesus actually puts him to the point in a really tough way. When they'd finished eating, Jesus he takes Simon Peter out and focuses on him. He says, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? And Peter says, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And Jesus says, feed my lambs. It's misleading, again, in translation, because Jesus, you guys, some of you know this, Jesus saying, John, do you agape me? Do you love me like agape is the love that's used in the New Testament uniquely of expressing the powerful love of God? Do you love me like, do you love me with an endless love, the love that took me to the cross? Do you love me in that way? And Peter goes, Lord, you know that I'm your friend. He doesn't say I love you. He says, he basically is saying, I'm philos. It's like where we get the word Philadelphia, city of brotherly love, city of friendship. He's saying, you know that I'm fond of you. And so for all of Peter's penalties, what's his sentence? What's his punishment? What's his punishment? Anybody? There is no punishment. In fact, instead of punishment, it's a commission to love the world. Later, through a vision, Peter's going to realize that Jesus came for the whole world. And Peter's going to be the first to really express that Jesus is for the whole world. And people are going to understand that for the first time. Not just for Jews, but for everybody. Jesus is for you. Jesus is for the Pokot. Jesus is for people that are totally unlike you, that you can't stand. Jesus is for them too. Jesus goes, Simon, do you agape? Do you love me with the love that I love you? And Peter goes, Lord, you know I'm really fond of you. We're friends. Jesus says, take care of my sheep. And it says the third time, not ironically, Simon, do you love me? And Peter was hurt. Man, Peter's feeling the wound of this. Third time. Can you even imagine? I can imagine it because I know when I failed. I know when I failed in my marriage, failed as a parent, failed as a friend. And go, Peter, do you love me? And he says, Lord, you know everything. Like, why are you putting me through this? He says, and you know that I love you. He says, you know that I care about you. He still can't say agape. He can't say it. He says, but you know I'm your friend. And Jesus says, feed my sheep. Feed my lambs. Take care of my sheep. Feed my sheep. What's the image? Jesus saying, take care of every person I bring your way. This powerful, true love story where Peter starts and then he falls and then he starts again. He does something great and then he fails terribly. It's like the story of my life, the story of our lives. And then even though Peter's unable to declare his real love for Jesus, Jesus still gives him the greatest of purposes to care and feed for Jesus' people. And so, as we get ready to sing this last song, I want you to think about this. Whoever you are not done. Whatever you've done, it was not as bad as what Peter did. And Jesus is calling you like he called Peter and saying, I love you, and offering forgiveness and hope. And Jesus never gives up on Peter. Jesus has never given up on me, and Jesus is never giving up on you.
Lord is my shepherd, and he is everything I need. So I will not worry, and I will not fear the enemy. He said that he loves me. He said that he's with me, even though I walk through the valley of shadow and death, and still I know he has good plans. He has good plans for me. So I will take part in deserts and gardens. He has good plans. He has good plans for me. If I know my Father, I know my Father has good plans. The Lord is my Savior, so why should I doubt my victory? And why would I question the rod and the staff that comforts me? He quiets the waters, he quiets the storms inside of me. So what could be better than walking with him when I believe he has good plans? For he has good plans
Lord, thank you, Lord. I think we're all just really trusting you and believing that your plans are good. Lord, Billy is getting ready to launch into your presence. Your plans are good for him. Every person that's here and listening, there's a longing to step out, have the courage, take the first step, or to come back running. Lord, I just would pray that you would move in our hearts for us to see that when we follow you, it might be a really big thing, or it might just be loving the person next to us or caring for our neighbor, because to you, people are the big thing. You came because you loved all the peoples of the earth, and every single one that as they leave today would know their worth to you. As Peter learned that his worth was not on his performance or his promises, but on Jesus inviting him to come on the water, to come for breakfast, and then to go out and be Jesus' hands and feet to the world. Lord, that we would be that would be an amazing thing. And we thank you in Jesus' name, amen. Hey, before you go, I want to tell you one last thing. Becca Mowry's had the Good Plans song on her playlist all month. Isn't that interesting that you guys picked that today, and they've been listening to that over and over. And Brian's last farewell message was Peter getting out of the boat to step out in faith. I just love that. I think God's doing something really special in us, and I look forward to seeing all these going to do. So guys, we'll be back for one last hero message. We're going to have a lot of fun. Let's rock on. Let's do it. Let's step out, okay? All right, see you.
Hey guys, amazing service. I hope you enjoyed it. What'd you think?
Yeah, I did. I think I liked the part, just the whole idea of the story of Peter, right? And even though he failed, Jesus never fails us and always wants a relationship with us.
Yeah. Yeah, so true. I think I've failed a couple times, right?
Me too.
I'm sure I've got a couple more ahead of me. But yeah, we're so glad you guys were with us. Loved having Steve with us today. Always a pleasure. So excited to have Brian and Becca Mowry in the house for the first time. Well, they've been here a couple times, but it's great that they're with us. So guys, join us next week. And next week is our party in the green space. It's going to happen. Bounce houses, cornhole, all the things. So come and be with us. I know maybe you're online and usually you think this place might be a little scary. Are we scary?
No.
No, we are fun. So come and hang out with us. We would love to meet you and enjoy the service. Yeah. 5th week of Heroic Moments next week. Wrapping it up.
And we've got on Wednesday barbecue and baptisms,
right? Yes, we do. That is going to happen this coming Wednesday, August 2nd. So we're getting there. All right. Have a great week, guys. We're so glad you're here. Enjoy your Sunday. Take care.
See ya.